If you want to be an advanced pickleball player, you need to fully grasp the strategy of effective dinking. So make sure to fully understand and follow these 8 tips, or winning at the kitchen against better players will be nearly impossible. So our first tip is that when you're at the kitchen, you should try to take any ball out of the air that you can. So a lot of the time, the ball is going to come right at your feet. What you don't want to do in that situation is back up and try to take the ball off the bounce. Ideally, you lean over the kitchen and intercept the ball out of the air. So you might have to get pretty low sometimes, but doing this is infinitely better than having to get on your back foot and potentially pop the ball up. So for a few examples, this is what you want to do. You want to volley dink it out of the air, get nice and low. And this is what you don't want to do. Back up and get on that back foot. So the next tip I want to go through is that when you're dinking, you need to make sure that you're using spin effectively. The 2 main types of spin that you'll use when dinking are topspin and slice. So topspin is when we roll over the ball like that. So I'm sliding up the back of the ball. And slice is when I go under the ball. So it's the exact opposite. The proper way to think about using spin in your dinks is that topspin is for your aggressive dinks and slice is for your more defensive or neutral dinks. So if I'm trying to use a push dink against Nathan, I'm going hard, I want to use topspin like that. See how I'm brushing up the back of the ball? But if he goes for a harder dink like that, I'll use slice to defend. So go for some harder dinks, Nathan. So he uses a harder dink. I'm going to use my slice dink to defend. Makes it a little easier for me to get back into a neutral position with that slice dink. So now that we're thinking about aggressive and defensive dinks, our next tip is that you should only go for aggressive dinks when you have the right ball and you have time. So you don't want to go for aggressive dinks if you're on your back foot and the ball is landing behind you like this. So if I go for an aggressive dink there's a good chance I might accidentally pop the ball up and my opponent can crush me. So the balls that I do want to go for aggressive dinks on are the ones that are slower and land in front of me like this. So here I have more time and I can be more aggressive and aim for my opponent's pressurized zone. So when I say the pressurized zone, I'm referring to the back portion of the kitchen, okay? So when we think about the zones of the kitchen, this is the pressurized zone, this is the neutral zone, and this is the shallow zone. On aggressive dinks, you're generally aiming in the pressurized zone to your opponent's sides, which is out of their strike zone. So if you get a dink that's shorter in the box, in the neutral zone or the shallow zone, that's your cue to be aggressive. If you're getting one in the pressurized zone, you probably shouldn't try to be aggressive. The next tip though is that on defensive dinks, you want to go for less risky, shorter dinks in the box. Like I said, if I try to go for an aggressive dink in the pressurized zone when I'm on my back foot, there's a very good chance I'll hit it too far and my opponent can accelerate while I'm off balance. So if he's going for aggressive dinks, my best bet is to just get the ball into the kitchen, probably into the neutral zone, and keep it nice and low so that he can't really do anything on the next shot. By keeping it low, I'm preventing him from having a good opportunity to go for a speed up. If I try to go hard here, like I said, there's a very good chance I might end up doing something like that and he can kill me. Don't confuse a defensive dink though with a dead dink. A dead dink is one that's slow, short in the box, and sits up for your opponents. A defensive dink will be slow and short in the box, but it's not going to sit up. A dead dink looks something like this. Gives him an easy opportunity to accelerate. A defensive dink is something like this. So I'm keeping it pretty low, and he doesn't have much of an opportunity to do much. And if you guys want to see which balls you should speed up on, which is one of the most important parts of winning dink battles, stay tuned because I'm covering that later. Our next tip though is that when you're in a dink battle, you should mix up where you're placing your shots. So what I mean by mixing it up is alternating between different types of dinks and where you're hitting them in the kitchen. So the 2 ways you can mix it up are by going cross court and down the line, and by going towards your opponent's forehand or towards their backhand. So let me show you how I do that. So rather than just going cross court like this every single time, where I'm aiming for the ball going in the corner, I can actually go to his forehand and his backhand. So if I go more towards the middle, I'm making him hit a backhand. More towards the corner, I'm making him hit a forehand. I can also go down the line, right? So I could literally alternate every single time that I dink and make a different player hit the ball on each one. That can just throw people off because neither player is able to get into as much of a rhythm. So the thing to keep in mind is that going towards the middle when you're mixing it up is a cool way to confuse your opponents because neither of them might not know which one of them should take the ball. So let me show you how that looks. So a lot of the time, I can put the ball down the middle and they might hesitate as to which one of them should take that shot. So you shouldn't go towards the middle every time, but it's a cool way to mix it up rather than just going cross court or down the line. So to be the most effective dinker though, you're gonna wanna make sure you're targeting your opponent's weaknesses. So you have 2 opponents, but usually both of them are gonna have one dink whether that be their forehand or backhand dink, that's weaker than the other. Usually it ends up being the backhand. So here I'm going cross court, but what I can do to target his backhand is aim towards the middle more, go for push dinks, which could give me an easier ball that I might want to speed up on. If I'm going down the line, same thing applies. I can simply aim more towards his backhand, which might lure him into giving me an easier ball. Don't get me wrong though, a lot of the time your opponents will have a weaker forehand dink too, so don't just automatically go to backhand. Make sure you test this out when you start your games. The other spot you should attack though is that like and subscribe button so you can see all of our other content that we're coming out with. If you want to get better at pickleball, you need to make sure you study the game, and our content's the best way to do that. Our next two tips though are the most important ones, so make sure to pay close attention. The first is your footwork. So the goal of our footwork in the kitchen is to never let ourselves get tangled up. And the way that we do that is by staying low with a wide base and taking big lunging steps out in each direction and always recovering immediately back into this neutral position. What we don't want to do is use a ton of little steps where we cross over and never get a solid base. So I don't split step before the shot, but I want to make sure before my opponent hits the ball, I'm back in this position so that I can explode in either direction that they hit the ball. If I'm still tangled up when my opponent's hitting the ball, there's a very high chance I might lose my balance and pop the ball up. So if your opponent's gonna beat you in the kitchen, don't let it be because you're off balance with your footwork and you give them an easy shot. Stay stable and always get back to that neutral position after each dink. Our next tip is that you need to be patient when you're dinking, but you need to accelerate when you have the right opportunity. So what is the right opportunity? Generally, you wanna speed up, you wanna accelerate on shots that are at a certain height or higher. So if we divide our contact points into 3 zones, we have the red zone down here, the yellow zone, and the green zone up here, all right? So anything in the green zone, you should accelerate on every single time. The yellow zone, that depends on how high in the yellow zone it is. So if I'm hitting the ball from below the height of the net, I might want to be a little more careful, and if my ball is above the height of the net, I probably should accelerate. In the red zone, usually you should never accelerate. So if I try to accelerate from the red zone, what's gonna happen is my ball is going to go up, which either is gonna give my opponent an easy shot or it's gonna sail out. So let me show you how that looks. Right? So I give him a nice high, easy sitter ball. So when you get a ball that's this low, probably below your knee or lower, you never wanna accelerate. When we're in the yellow zone, so probably the knee to your hip range, this is where we need to be a little careful. So occasionally it might make sense for me to go for an acceleration in this area. But usually if I'm being patient, I probably want to either dink or volley dink those kinds of shots back. When I'm in the green zone though, I need to accelerate every single time or I'm just giving away an opportunity to win the point. Guys, if you follow these 8 tips, your kitchen game is going to improve drastically. And if you thought you got something out of this video, make sure to like and subscribe because we got a ton more videos just like this coming out. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to go through some of our other videos and see you next time.